Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will go ahead and get started with Coach Kelly. Coach, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's for us here at Notre Dame, getting into a normal work week is enjoyable. Coming back with, certainly a routine. It provides a bit of, I guess, from a coach's standpoint, that sense of normalcy, if you will, and we're going to need it. Playing a very good opponent in the University of Louisville. Coach Satterfield's done a really, really nice job of building a strong culture with this program in a very, very short period of time. It's a talented team. It's a team that I know the record speaks at 1-3, but it's a much better football team than that. This past week, they were the better football team, but they put the ball on the ground, and and they know that you can't turn the football over against anybody and expect to win the football game. But this is a really good football team. Cunningham at the quarterback position does a great job of running the offense. Their scheme is well coached and well executed. And it's surrounded with some talented offensive players. Atwell is probably as good as we've seen in space as a skill player, complemented with Fitzpatrick and Marshall. So then you look at the running game, and Hawkins, I think he's third in the country, best in the ACC, and arguably one of the best, if not the best, backs in the country. So it's a very talented offense. They've got a lot of returners, I think 10 in particular. So, really good scheme, really well coached, dynamic playmakers, an offensive line, again, that is really good technically at what they do. Defensively, a true 3-4 defense, and it'll be really the first time that we've seen a true 3-4 defense. And obviously, it's got to have the backers, and they do. They've got two linebackers in particular, and Etheridge and Avery, the inside guys that have a lot of experience playing, and they're very good players inside. Certainly athleticism is when you look at their defense is the thing that shows up the most. They can run. They're athletic. They've got some experience in the back end, certainly with Yeast, who's played a lot of football for him. He looks bigger and stronger. So, again, from a defensive personnel standpoint, we'll have to do a really good job against their 3-4 defense. It creates some unique situations for us where we have, obviously prepared for more 4 down during the year. They'll be moving up front. They're athletic, again, on defense, and we'll have to be prepared for that. So, again, a well-coached football team, a team that, in my estimation, could be very easily on the other side of that 1-3 mark. And if they take care of the football, this is going to be one heck of a football game. So we're going to have to play our very best. We're going to have to play better than we did last weekend against Florida State. And that will be our focus this week. Again, it's normally about how we prepare, and we've done a really good job of that, and we'll have to get back to it this week. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
All right, Coach, your first question is from Tim Priester.
Brian, the game against Florida State was strange from the standpoint that defensively, the optics were way worse than the statistics. I was wondering if there was anything from watching the film that was better or worse from your perspective from the sideline Saturday night.
No, I mean, I think it's not the kind of defense that Clark has put out there, nor the kind of defense that I want to put out there. There are some factors that were unique in that we had a lot of those guys that were not practicing during the week, and it showed. And you've got to practice this game to be at your very best, and so it showed. Again. I think there were some uncharacteristic defensive, I would say, lapses, if you will, that occurred that we don't normally see. But we will address those, and our guys are aware of them, and they'll be corrected for this weekend.
We'll go next to Patrick Engel. And Patrick, I believe you're on mute.
Hey, Brian, you alluded after the game on Saturday that the cornerback situation was kind of in flux with some guys getting back into practice. What did managing that and what you saw from those guys on Saturday kind of teach you about the kind of ever-changing adaptability mindset that you as a staff kind of have to have this year?
Yeah, well, certainly, it wasn't just the cornerback position. It tugs on other positions as well. Moving Crawford, out of the safety position, puts you in a position where you're calling on other guys to play a lot more football, more snaps. But again, I think across the board, it required us to count on Howard Cross and Jacob Lacey, and they filled in nicely. But there's more game for them in a sense that they can up their game even more. And so Jason Adiomola played a lot more. And so in one sense, we have to be prepared and have them prepared. But in another sense, I think that they get a chance to see themselves on film and know where they need to improve. There's so much that you can do in talking to them about where they need to get their game. But if they only get 3 or 4 reps, it's really hard to for them to envision that or see it. They got a lot of reps. Now they know where their game needs to move to play at that next level, if you will. So I think the game taught us a lot about what our players now can see themselves moving forward, and that we have to be flexible and ready to prepare any and all players, during this unique season.
We'll go next to Eric Hansen.
Brian, did Javon McKinley's success maybe limit how much you got a chance to look at Kevin Austin in the game? And also, it looks like you may be considering him for punt returns this week.
It's an interesting kind of confluence, if you will, if that's the right word. We're trying to bring Kevin back. At the same time, we're trying to elevate Javon, within our offensive structure. So in one sense, we want to get Kevin back in the mix, but we don't want to take away from the success of Javon, because we're trying to feed him, if you will, and feed him in a sense of building his confidence. So it's kind of a tricky situation for us right now. Kevin is now at that mark where we feel like we can just put him in now and not have to worry about his numbers or how much he's playing. So you're going to see him in the game at the same time as McKinley. They had been kind of working at the same position. Now it's going to be a very competitive situation during the week of practice, and these guys are going to be competing for playing time. So it was a tricky situation coming into this week. I think as you move forward, you're going to see these guys really getting after it during the week to play and get more and more time. There was a second part of the question too, I think.
Regarding punt returner.
Yeah, he is going to be back there with Chris Salerno, and we'll see how that goes during the week.
We'll go next to Andrew Mentok.
In the first 3 games, you've had 7 or 8 guys really get meaningful minutes at the linebacker position. And as you kind of get everybody back and everybody gets back into rhythm, how do you kind of balance having so many guys who can make an impact at 3 different spots?
Yeah, there's no clear answer to the balance question when you have good players and great depth. I think it's kind of similar to the running back position. We have to have selfless players that understand that each and every week is really a different game in itself, and how it unfolds. You look at I keep saying Boo, Sebo Fleminster, where he has over 100 yards rushing against South Florida, and he gets 3 or 4 snaps, and that's hard for a young man, but he's got to understand that we've got talented players, and you still have to prepare yourself, but it's a team game. And the same thing at linebacker. They've got to compete, and they've got to know that we're going to make decisions as coaches that are in the best interest of the team, and not necessarily about the individual, but what's best for the team. And that's sometimes difficult if you're an individual, but you have to understand that what's best for the team.
We'll go next to Pete Sampson.
Brian, with Kyron Williams, curious about the physical transformation there. Is that something that he sort of took on his own, or how Matt Balis helped him through that, just sort of getting him from first spring practice about 18 months ago to where he is physically today?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of self-awareness on Kyron's part. There's a little bit of actualization that I I probably I need to kind of understand that this is my time now. Tony Jones has moved on, and I've got a chance here. I better pay attention to the nutrition and the physical part. And then obviously when you do that, and you hold up your end, Coach Balis is his workouts and the way he has things set up, you're going to be the beneficiary of all that. But it doesn't start until self-awareness and what you need to do. And I think it started with Kyron understanding that he had to, change the way he was living and how he was taking care of himself. And then Coach Balis obviously kicked in with our strength and conditioning program.
We'll go next to Lou Samoji.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Thanks, Lou.
Just a couple of things at linebacker. Bo Bauer especially seemed to have a more prominent role on Saturday. I know you had talked about him in the preseason as somebody who was really evolving well, and it seems to have continued. So that's part one. And then just an update on Paul Moala, and if he is unable to go, what are your next options behind Jeremiah at Rover?
Yeah. So, Bo's evolution has been much more about, I think his ability to control and handle his emotional space. In other words, getting into his emotional zone where he can play the game and play it at the level necessary for him to be the best football player. So that's not just from a physical standpoint. That's from a technical and tactical standpoint. He was a bit out of control in a sense that he may miss a fit here or not be lined up in the right position. And he's really done an incredible job of finding that emotional zone that allows him to be locked in and be assignment correct. You bring that with his physical tools and his knack for finding the football, and you can see a guy that has ascended, in our defensive structure. So it's really good to see. He's not just a guy that is starting to make plays. He's starting to influence the way our defense looks when he's out there. As it relates to Paul Moala, unfortunately, I have to report he tore his Achilles tendon, so he is scheduled for surgery, and Isaiah Pryor now will be backing up Jeremiah at that position. So he'll be getting a lot of the work there. And as he's learning the position, we'll also employ kind of what we did last year, a nickel situation there, as well as, we can also play with a third linebacker. So we have some options there as well.
We'll move next to Pete Byrne.
Hi, Coach. You spoke a little bit about Kyron's strength and conditioning, but I'm curious just in terms of what you're seeing on Saturdays from him through 3 games that's kind of forcing you to play him as much as you have. And following up on that also, to what extent is his speed and Chris Tyree's speed becoming such a factor in your mind that you're feeling the need to keep one of those guys on the field almost exclusively offensively?
Well, I would say both of their ability to pick up the tough yards. They're both willing to run inside the tackles. I think if you look at Kyron in particular, his rushing yards after first contact are pretty impressive. And so for a guy that, in some circles you may say he's not very big, he plays big from that perspective. And then Chris Tyree, what we've been very, very impressed with is his patience and ability. For example, one of his long runs on the outside zone play was cut back up underneath, the tight end wing block. And, that requires a lot of patience, confidence, and trust. And you usually don't get that with a young back, right? They become impatient. They want to bounce it outside. So 2 traits here that generally don't occur until there's a lot more carries and a lot more maturity. One is yards after first contact, and the second is patience and trust that Chris Tyree shows in running the football. So those have been 2 differentiators for both of those guys that have really impressed us.
We'll go next to Tim O'Malley.
Coach, I think we assumed Tariq Bracy would win the starting role when Troy Pride graduated, but what did he do in camp to allow you to actually move Crawford to safety? That he showed you the growth of that position?
He got stronger. One of the things that was, priority number 1 was we felt like he needed to be a little bit more explosive out of his break. And, he got his weight up to over 180 pounds. He got stronger in his lower body and his ability to break on the football. And then I'll give you an example in the game. His one-on-one tackle on a big physical back coming out of the backfield, where he was able to neutralize, flatten out that back and run him out of bounds. Tariq would have struggled with that. He probably would have went for a low tackle on that at the ankles last year. This year he feels a lot more confident in his ability to physically neutralize a bigger opponent in that instance. And we feel really good about the progress that he's made from mostly a physical standpoint.
We'll go next to Austin Huff.
Brian, could you give us an update on Myron, Tagovailoa Almosa, and then also, usually at this time of the year you play 5 or 6 games. Is it harder to evaluate players at this point of the season, only having played 3 games as opposed to 5 or 6?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in particular, Myron's only been available to us for 2 games. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of football left for Myron. Myron will be available to us. If everything goes well, he would be available to us this weekend, as well as Kaiser, if everything goes well with both those guys. So, yeah, I mean, when they're out of the lineup and you've only played 3 games, it would be natural to make that assumption that there's still a lot of football left for all of our guys. There's still a lot of growth left for Myron, and we're hopeful that we'll have him back this weekend.
We'll go next to Tyler James.
Brian, I'm curious, how much does Kyle Hamilton's return back into the secondary at safety maybe make you feel a bit more comfortable when you have some moving pieces around him in the secondary?
Can you see my face? He's a difference maker. I mean, he covers ground like no safety that I have coached. He plays with physicality. He's smart. He's a terrific football player, and his presence is felt out there. He closes. He's an eraser too. I mean, you can put him on somebody, and just by his size, he makes it difficult for teams to go into his area. You know, whether it's in a run game or pass game. And I say that after spending a little bit more time, specifically watching him and his impact over the last, three games. He makes a huge impact in our defense.
Our next question is from Mark Skoll.
Hey, Coach, we saw Jeremiah Wusu-Koroma deliver some big hits on Saturday, and we've seen him do those hits quite often. But what else does he bring to the defense that maybe the common fan wouldn't realize?
His ability to cover man-to-man. Here's a guy who's, from a size standpoint, he's, closer to 220 than he is 215, and he can play the slot man-to-man. He can play a skilled player man-to-man. That's like having a linebacker out there playing a skilled receiver man-to-man. That's a great tool to have. So I think you bring that. The second thing is in our sub package, you don't take him off the field. He can be a pass rusher for us as well. He's been an effective pass rusher in our dime package. He just gives us a lot of versatility and a guy that can play on all downs for you and do a lot of different things, for our football team. And he's on our kickoff team. We've got him stacked up on our kickoff team, does a lot of different jobs, very impactful in a sense that I talked about Hamilton at the back end. He's extremely impactful, at that linebacker depth level for us as well.
Our next question is from Patrick Engel.
Hey, Brian, we saw a lot of quarterback runs or options and whatnot from Florida State. And it's something Louisville likes to do and did against you guys last year. What did you see from watching you guys defend those in particular on film that you took away from Saturday?
That we didn't defend them very well. We'll have to defend them better, and we will. I don't know that they will, put Cunningham in as many scenarios, but we'll be prepared for it. They're certainly going to utilize all the tools that they have at their disposal, but certainly we're going to have to be ready for option. We're going to have to be ready for the quarterback runs. But they're an outside zone team, and they're really, really good at it, and it's going to have to start there. And defending that, their boot game is obviously very, very good. Getting the ball in space to their skill receivers. Certainly, defending him out of the pocket is going to be a big concern for us as well. He's very good at, creating, and that is as big of concern for us as probably anything.
Our next question is from Eric Hansen.
Brian, you haven't had all your Buck linebackers all at once yet this year. When you finally do get all those guys together, how do you kind of see that playing out?
Well, I think we have to have a mindset that allows us to play a lot of players, and they have to have some flexibility at the position in which they play, so we can get the best players on the field. So I wouldn't be shocked to see guys playing, one or two different of those linebacker positions, because we've got to get them on the field. They're all really good players, and they can impact our defense. So we can't just be locked into saying this guy plays Mike or he plays Buck and that's it. We've got to be able to get these guys on the field because they can help us win.
Our next question is from Tyler James.
Brian, I'm curious about how the team sort of responded to seeing what Liam played through with his eye looking like that on Saturday night. Is that something that motivates the rest of the team to see how much he's willing to fight through stuff like that?
Yeah, I think I think all of our guys in the locker room after the game were, they had a lot of respect for him anyway. But I think it just kind of solidified the kind of respect that they had for him as a leader on our football team. And he had it, obviously from, the guys that he goes against, the defensive linemen. But, when you see, guys like, cornerbacks and guys that he doesn't see a lot, and DBs go up to him and talking to him, you can tell that had an effect on other players in our program about him, being gritty and fighting through to get back out on that football field.
And we have time for a couple more questions, so if you do have a question, please use the raise hand function. All right, and we will go next to Tim Priester.
Brian, what's the status of Ben Scaroni? Did he come out of the game fine, or are you just playing some other guys?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't feeling. He's had some trouble with this hamstring, and it's been nagging, quite frankly. And he hasn't been able to cut it loose. And we're hopeful that he's at a position this week where he's able to cut it loose. It's really held him back from us being able to get him in a rotation and factor him in. So we're hopeful that he'll be able to do that this week.
We'll go next to Angelo DiCarlo. And Angelo, I believe you're on mute. Okay, we will circle back if there is time, but we'll go now to Pete Byrne.
Hey, Coach, this is not a question we've ever asked before, but I'm just curious, given the unique nature of this season, how in tune you are to the ACC standings. Do you pay attention to that at all?
Not really. I pay attention to the teams that are, on our schedule coming up. I know Clemson's good. And and then the other teams that we've, that we play. I mean, certainly Louisville. But, we live in such a 1 hour to 1 hour. It's hard to get out too far in front of what we're doing. I know we're playing Pitt next week on the road because we've already been talking about, what the road looks like for us in terms of procedures and protocols. But no, it's been such a hour to hour kind of focus. Other than knowing that Clemson's really good, that's about it.
And we will finish up today with Len Clark.
Hi, good afternoon, Brian. Dublin, Ireland fans have adopted J.D. Bertrand because of the connection. Can you talk about his progress? I know he's been playing a lot on special teams, but do you see him in practice doing anything to maybe get into the rotation sometime soon?
Yeah, he's a really good football player. And he was all over the place last Saturday night on special teams. He was impactful. On kickoff, made 2 tackles inside the 20-yard line, punt, kickoff return, and he's on our scout team right now. He's as good as a scout team player that I've had, and I've had them all down there. You know, I've had Simon down there. I have had Bauer down there. I've had White down there. I've had every starter that has been on scout team that is a starter for us on defense. You know, practicing against our offense, and he's as good as we've had. So he's got a bright future, and his time will come. And when it does, we'll be talking about another really, really good football player at that position.
All right, that's all we have for you. Thank you very much, Coach.
All right, thank you.